Hello Judy, I'm Karen with the Guernsey Disability Alliance. Today we're filming for a Hidden Disability campaign. I wonder if you could introduce yourself please.
Oh, well, I'm Judy Blake and I've been hard of hearing for a while really, but really deaf for about 8 years. That's when it really hit me. I mean, there are all sorts of degrees, I think, but about 8 years ago, the hearing in my right ear went overnight, suddenly. So I was actually quite stunned. Anyway, the long and the short is I got hearing aids which keep me going. And they have to be changed, and they've got stronger and stronger over the years. My hearing's got less and less, but you cope.
That must have been a big shock, like you say, it was overnight. Could you maybe explain to anyone that doesn't understand what it's like to lose your hearing that quickly? Could you tell us a little bit?
It was a shock actually. It sounds very strange, but I actually heard it go. I'd been out to dinner with a group of friends and I knew I'd had a difficult evening. Anyway, went to bed. It was very late. I woke up about 4 o'clock and I heard this whoo, whoosh sort of noise and then nothing. And there was nothing. And I left it like that. In the morning I woke, I thought, oh, maybe it'll be better, because I was used to a fairly blocked head. Nothing. And then I panicked because I was in Spain. My son wasn't in the house. I didn't know where he was. So I rang a girlfriend. I couldn't hear her. I just left a message and said, please, if you hear this, come. Luckily she did, and she came. But it is a shock. You don't know where to start. Anyway, she took me to the local hospital, where they told me, well, it's old age, dear. You have to expect it. This was actually Malaga in Spain. So yes, I had to get paper and pencil because I hadn't got a hearing aid. I did find my son eventually, so between the friends and my son, they got me to London where I had an x-ray and whatever, but all this time of course was quite difficult. I did go to a local Spanish lady who was fantastic, and she cobbled something together for me, literally, which sort of kept me going. I could hear little bits, but then gradually I got a proper pair of hearing aids. I don't know, it took about 3 weeks. Wow. And then I heard in London that it was the cochlea that had lost its little hairs, and that was that. I've never really known what this ear is. I think it's a nerve problem. Anyway, the long and the short is I now don't hear, except with these fantastically powerful nuclear station powered hearing aids.
Right. So technology is helping you? Like, you feel, are the hearing aids getting better and better for you? Or?
Well, they've got more and more powerful. This is the third set of hearing aids I've had, and without them you and I wouldn't be talking. They are fantastic. They are fantastic. I'm at the moment thinking and inquiring into a cochlear implant. Mm-hmm. That might be an answer for me, but I've only just started and it's a very long process. So I have to see. It may suit me, it may not, I don't know. In the meantime, well, they are good, but you have to be a bit of an engineer to these things, people find. Well, do other people find? I don't know, you have to unblock them and screw them together and be a bit of a technician.
Thank you.
I don't know what happens when you get older. You can't see.
Someone to help. Could we go back to the shock, because we've spoken to somebody that was born with a hearing loss. So they grew up learning to lip read. They had strategies for having a hearing loss. Could you maybe tell us how you coped with everyday things that you do?
Well, a friend said to me when I first went deaf, she was the wife of a doctor, please keep going out, please try, don't cut yourself off. It's actually very hard because you have to in the end, to be honest. Every day in the house is easy because you sort things out. I now have a dog, which is an added help. But if you take it without, the house is fine. Once you leave the house, it's another world. There are all sorts of things. I can't go to concerts or cinema or musicals or large gatherings. Or if I find myself in large gatherings, it's not that comfortable. Mm-hmm. So you tend to organise where you go. Shops and restaurants, everywhere in Guernsey, I have to say, has been very helpful. I haven't had anybody make it more difficult for me. So obviously I can hear a bit, but I have to ask people to repeat. They have to be patient, and usually they are, so that's good. Large noisy areas are really hard to deal with, and I realise too there are all sorts of things I've backed out of. I avoid going to town when it's very busy and there are a lot of people there. My balance isn't good for me with the lack of hearing. If there are a lot of people behind, I can't tell who's behind me or what's happening, so I'm uncomfortable. So I tend to choose my days. The same as supermarkets. Maybe I go midweek rather than the weekend. None of this is impossible or undoable, but it just makes you stop and think about it a bit more. And I have to ask people to repeat. Or slow down, and different levels of voices come through differently. But it's much easier than some other disabilities, I'm sure, that people have to deal with. You gradually get used to it. But there's no getting away from it unless you're with a group of people who really know you, or a group who have hearing loss as well. You do withdraw, however much people say don't. It's difficult not to, because you're not comfortable anymore. You can't cope with it. And you embarrass other people, because after the third time of asking, can you say that again, or give it to me a different way, everybody collapses and gives up.
Do you mind me asking a very personal question? If you met somebody and they'd said it for the third time, would you be happy to say I have a hearing loss, or comfortable to say I have a hearing loss?
I've usually told people fairly quickly, and do this and say I have. No, I don't mind. In fact, my husband also had one ear that didn't function. And he would never tell anybody. And I used to say, for goodness sake, just let them know, or sit with your bad ear next to me so you can hear. So yes, I do actually let people know quite quickly. It's easier. But even then, in some situations, I cannot communicate. And that is frustrating. It's a shame because you can't have a wider conversation with people. And I suppose that then happens, you start to live, which in your own little world, you withdraw. It's not unpleasant, but you get used to it and you give up perhaps a bit more easily. Sometimes I think it would be nice if there's a really juicy conversation going on with lots of gossip. I miss all the pertinent bits. And it is frustrating, yes.
You mentioned not going to concerts. For the public may think that with hearing loops and other things that's possible. Could you help us to explain to the public why that's difficult for you?
What, not going to concerts and cinemas?
Or why?
If you were at I can't hear music really at all. Perhaps something classical. Anything very upbeat, I can hear the beat, but not necessarily anything else. If I went to a play, I would hear no words, so everything is visual.
Yes.
The cinema, I went to Mamma Mia, and they told me where it was best to sit. Fine. Well, I know ABBA from old, so I knew the music, which was fun. But I didn't really hear it. I had to wait until I came back here and had television and subtitles to enjoy it. If there's a lecture, unless I was in the front seat, and I have to say I haven't been to one for about 6 years, and I did hear that. It was quite interesting. But my hearing has deteriorated since then, so I don't know. So, if you like, I've been a bit lazy. I haven't tried again. But we were at a gathering, if you like, at a barbecue at the weekend with a number of people. And you see 10 people at a table, at a bigger table. I can't hear them there, so I don't see how, unless you just go for the visual thing, how you can join in.
Mm-hmm. Is that a fair question? Because I think the public perception would be that there's technology and they don't understand.
No, it's absolutely right.
So
there isn't enough technology.
Well,
the technology does not reach a hearing
there
loss like
are
Judy's.
extra bits, and depending on your hearing level, there are little things. I have tried one, but I haven't bought the latest that you can put on the table, and it's meant to bring your voice to me. But they're £2,000 odd, so you hesitate at that bit. I think conferencing, there are some men that use them, I think, and probably use them quite well, but whether they're profoundly deaf or just partly deaf, I don't know.
I think a lot of the technology that's out there is aimed at people with a moderate to severe loss at best. And
Right.
I think where you are now is going from severe
To
to
profound.
profound. And that is really asking an awful lot of technology. And that's where the cochlear implant comes in.
Could
That's
come in.
Yes.
Apparently, according to Hidden Hearing, they're producing a new hearing aid. Have you heard of this?
I have,
that
yes.
has a wire connection as opposed to these tubes. Mm-hmm. These tubes get condensation in them, and you've got to clear them all the time. And it is interesting. It's like blocked drains. You go off air. It's very frustrating. I don't know if they're any better. Have you met anybody who's tried them?
I think they're so new. They're trying to find somebody in Guernsey to trial them. But are you going to try it?
Well, they asked me, but they're so expensive, and they're not like Mike, who would fit up a pair and let you test.
they're not going to do that.
You know, you have to buy these, and they can range from 7,000, 5,000, whatever. It's a small car, you know. They will refund, I think. I don't know. I'm really waiting for the cochlear implant people to tell me, is it worth going down that road?
I think that's the best thing to do, is to go to Southampton and have the assessment. And they're very, very experienced in being able to explain, you know, what your hearing is like now and what they think it could be with an implant. And whether that they will know if there's a hearing aid that's better for you than what you have now.
Instead of going that route, one or the other.
You have nothing to lose by having the assessment.
That's what
really.
I feel.
So
we've started, but you know, I've had 3 sort of meetings here, but then I have to wait and be introduced to somebody in either the hospital or the university, I gather, in Southampton.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's all very interesting.
A lot of what we're doing today is trying to get the public to understand more. Could you give us some examples, like when you're shopping or if you were at a bank, what people can do to make it easier for you, please?
Well, of course, the best thing I've had, I have to tell you, is my dog, my hearing dog, because she wears a jacket and people can see straight away. And I have to say, she makes an enormous difference. People come up and help, and they're a little more patient, so that makes a difference. But to be honest, here, anywhere really where I've been, I think once I've let them know I can't hear, everybody's very helpful. And restaurants, 1 or 2 hesitations I had while they thought about it, because I had my dog with me. And then they said, oh, that's fine, because it's not a law here in Guernsey yet for a dog to be allowed in. We have a letter explaining from the Hearing Dog Association and asking people, but everybody's been very good. And she is so well trained, she quietly sits down and that's it. But no, I'm fine. The checkout at supermarkets is sort of a routine thing, and you rather guess at what they're saying because you can't always hear with all the noise. Once you do that, is my saviour, then people are fine. No, it's just your own travelling, for instance. I now don't feel as confident. My eyesight isn't as good as it used to be, so you're battling with 2 things, if you like. And hearing, I can't hear anyone behind me. I can't hear the announcements. And then you hold people up and you think, oh gosh. So you have to explain to people. So there's all the extra bit. But once you have, I've had nothing but help, I must admit. Yeah.
That's excellent. Thank you. The campaign that we're doing is called Hidden Disabilities. And you just explained that now that you have Ash, your hearing dog, how much easier it is for you. In some ways, this is a really good finish for us. Could you maybe give us another example about how something was difficult before Ash and how it's now easier with her, or what you used to have to do before you had your dog?
Right. Well, I now can know that when I have to get up for something, I will be up, because she will wake me with the alarm. That's actually important, instead of relying on myself. Or a bed vibrator, which doesn't work very well on an alarm clock. She's fantastic. She wakes me. The biggest thing probably for me is when I'm out, she's my mobile walking stick, because as I mentioned before, my balance isn't good. So I can hold her and she gives me some grounding. And of course, because she's there with her very smart jacket, people give me a bit of elbow room instead of being right, they walk in front of you, behind you, whatever, which when you're hearing you don't worry, but suddenly when you're not, you tend not to be quite so grounded. Mm-hmm. So that's probably my biggest thing. Also, of course, she lets me know if somebody's at the door, because if I haven't got hearing aids in, I won't hear them. Mm-hmm. And I have had people drive away. She's safety, mm-hmm. because I live on my own. Mm-hmm. She will bark at the odd thing. Not much, but it's enough that I feel it's a bit of protection. And smoke alarms. She will hear those, which I have had a mini thing. One went off in a restaurant and she was definitely, she didn't do the full thing because she's still a bit young and she's still learning, but she knows what it is and she alerted me enough before I heard it. Yes, and of course she grows on you, and you get very used to having a companion there. Yes, a companion too, because if you're, other people will say this, you live in a silent world if you haven't got your hearing aids in, and if you don't put a television on with subtitles, which gives you something. Of course, it gives you movement in the house and a companion. A big difference, actually. It would be nice if more people could have them.
Thank you.
There's another world out there beside you, so can you ask other people?
Mm-hmm. I do. I'm very sensitive to hearing, and so I ask if it's the day. If it's not, I wouldn't go into a nightclub and ask. If I go to a restaurant and there's very few people and I'm meeting someone, I say, can you turn it down? 80% will, but I've had a few that won't, and there's no one in the restaurant. And I've gone up a second time and said, I can't hear very well. Can you please turn the music off or down? Because there's no one else in. And it's something we, in the right situation, you know, not some lively bar at 11 o'clock at night.
No, there's nothing you can do in some circumstances, but I very often ask people to turn the music down because it isn't adding to the enjoyment for many people. My husband has terrifically good hearing, but he can't hear in background noise. Yeah.
Actually, I'll tell you something, because you both said something interesting. I'm beyond even hearing it.
Okay.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yes.
And so you forget. I mean, if there's a music box up here, you know, then I hear the beat or whatever. So obviously that would be. And girlfriends have asked before and said, can you turn it down? But obviously. But I think one of the things is choosing where you go, really, if you can, which is somewhere with curtains, carpets, soft furnishings, because our new minimalistic design now is quite tough, really, for hearing people, because everything bounces back at you, always slightly distorted. And people talking to you, one-to-one, if they can, looking at you, a little slower, I think, rather than anything else. I think men's voices are very often easier because they're at a lower level, they're deeper, and women's voices are softer. So if you can, yes, look at somebody as opposed to turning away and carrying on, because people do that a lot. They carry on, start a speech, and wander off and you've lost it. I don't know, really, extra help. You know, That's interesting. I've obviously got used to coping with my own things.
The big difference is that you are telling people that you have a hearing loss before you start trying to have a conversation. Your strategy is absolutely brilliant. You are saying, I have a hearing loss, I need you to talk
To help me.
Yeah, and that's the big difference. Many people don't
do that. Well, in that case, I mean, I don't like to tell other people to do that because I don't know if that is the best thing, but it works for me. Yes, I feel more confident to say I can't hear properly, then we know where we are. And if I have to ask you again, you're not embarrassed and I'm not. Yes. Otherwise, as I say, you have to choose your places a little bit. And very loud, very crowded areas for deaf people are difficult. I don't know how companies or shops or whatever can cope more. Probably music, as you say, isn't a good thing. But you can't stop general noise and you can't stop general life, can you?
But because sometimes there's different impairment groups that could do things. So, for example, Oberlins, do you know the mental health? There's a new part to the hospital. It's very noisy. So, anyone with autism, hearing loss, myself, anyone on the spectrum for, who struggles, they have no quiet space. So we've asked them. There's a big area, and we've said, could you set up a quiet space? We're getting them to put booths. Booths. A bit of soft furnishing. And what we're saying, if somewhere is large enough, it would be great if they could accommodate a quiet space. Because it's not just for one group of people, it's actually for quite a wide, and as people get older, other people want quiet space as well. So we're trying to encourage this more and more when we go to restaurants that are renovating,
Yes, the Auberge du Val.
Yes.
No, the other one, the Auberge at Cherbourg, has put in a special ceiling on their extended glass area. I don't know how really effective. It's a sort of perforated polystyrene.
It's like what we
strange.
call cloud.
Yes.
But it still doesn't work with the glass. No. I can't go there. Or the Goof. The Goof is a terrible place. Mint, depending where you are, like you say, well, it's smaller, cosier. Yeah.
And the garden centres are terrible.
The Friquet.
The Friquet and not Oatlands.
The Earlswood.
Earlswood. That got an award from some kind of architectural award. I couldn't believe that.
And you can't. No, I don't go in. I just don't go for coffee. I pop in and out of the Friquet when I need something. But as a social thing, unless it's outside. Of course, outside is lovely. But we can't always use that, can we?
You said a great piece before that were cut later about there was a good piece you mentioned earlier about curtains, and so we use that for sure. Great.
Yeah, soft furnishing, particularly in restaurants, if you will. Because you said that. I mean, you can hear, but your husband too is beginning to struggle maybe a bit. If he had something to absorb, he'd then hear over the table a bit better, wouldn't he?
Absolutely.
Ollie, anything else that we've talked about before? We talked about hidden, non-hidden. And just Ollie cuts it, so he knows, does it all fit, or have we missed anything?
I think we've covered most things.
I think some good snippets there, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, this one's interesting because it's gone from a hidden to now a sort of a visible disability with the dog helping out on a daily basis, which I think we've touched upon. How can the public help? And we've done how it all began at the beginning, the history.
Did you want to mention the airport?
No, because I think I had written down travelling, airports, and then you actually said something about
Yes, I put
You
travel
said
here,
that.
yes.
You didn't hear the announcements.
I held up a flight.
Did you?
I was so embarrassed, and then that actually is the only I was really told off. In the end, I said to her, look, I can't hear, I'm awfully sorry, but you know, you're really ticking me off like a little girl. But I learnt from that. So in that way it worked. That's probably why I've told people, because I got such a telling off.
So they didn't know you were hard of hearing that time?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
No, and I was only just learning to deal with the travelling, yes. Yeah, interesting. So now I tell them when I check in and whatever. But of course now I have another thing, because I take her and then it's another procedure if I take her now, because you have to be escorted through and all the rest of it.
Can you take Ash everywhere with you when you travel?
She can come in the plane with me, which is extraordinary. They book off the seat next to me and she lies on the floor under my feet. I think if you had a smaller one, she could probably go on the seat. And she just has to be very quiet and good. And I've taken her once. I don't think she's flown before, but she just stayed quiet for an hour's flight when we went to England, and the same back. And she looked at me as the engines revved and we took off. But she stayed. No, so I can take her all the way through. And because I've got her with me, then they escort me, which makes it all much easier. And I don't hold flights up anymore, do I?
That's good. You talked a bit about your dizziness. Have you noticed that in the night, when you get up, if you need to get up in the night and you haven't got your hearing aids in, have you noticed that your dizziness is worse then, your balance?
Yes, my balance is terrible. But again, it happens that I can go from one item of furniture to another to be safe, to a bathroom and back again. But I have terrible blocked sinus. I know it's a separate thing, which I can't seem to get cleared. I do take medication for it. But that's been getting worse. And on those days, it makes my hearing even worse. But then that's also, I think, to do with allergies. There you are. I suppose that's another one of your hidden things.
I was just writing, yes, We often have people that have either, multiple either impairments or allergies, and they affect each other, like you say, sinuses,
Yes.
vertigo.
Terrible.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to have to go on to that and ask the doctor more about this, because I think there's more extra problems there besides hearing that I get so blocked. Because allergies then cause, for me, internal blockages, if you like. I don't come out in hives and spots and whatever. I could get, if I eat bread, terrible backaches. Wheat. I don't know why, but that I found out ages ago. Dairy products are the problems here, so I have to be very careful, but occasionally I'm not.
Yes.
And then I pay for it. So I don't know how much is allergy reaction and how much is hearing. You would know more. Do a lot of people have balance problems? I know Betty Tosterman did.
Yes, it is one of the things that happens if you've got a problem with your cochlea and your inner ear. If you do go to Southampton, that they can do some balance testing, and the ENT surgeons would go through absolutely everything.
Everything to know what this is. That's what I feel.
Because you have to weigh everything up in the balance to see whether, because you can make balance problems worse if you have an implant. So, you have to look at the whole picture. That's why it's good that it's done in a university setting. There's lots of people there doing lots of research all the time. It's very exciting.
So what is vertigo then, per se? Somebody says
sometimes get a virus. If you have problems with your ears, sometimes when you get a virus, just a cold, it can set off vertigo, and you're literally.
That's how that ear started.
Yeah. And sometimes I can't get up for like a day, 2 days, and quite a lot of other people suffer with it as well.
And then that goes.
Yeah, and then your balance is completely gone. Like literally can't stand up.
Yes, and you go round and round. It's horrendous.
Yeah, and it tends to happen with people that already have either hearing problems or susceptible to sinusitis
Sinus
Or people with
blocking.
Meniere's disease.
yes, Meniere's.
It's
I
all the
wouldn't mind-
joys of getting older as you multiply all the bits that need attention.
Can I get you to introduce yourself?
Yes.
Nikki?
I'm Nikki Stevens. I'm the chair of the Guernsey Hard of Hearing Association, and I've also been a hearing therapist for about 20 years. I had a hearing loss myself for about 20 years and I wore hearing aids, and I think that's what led me into the world of hearing therapy and working with people with hearing loss. So although I can't tell what it's like for anybody else, I know what it was like for me. I've been fortunate enough to have some surgery so I can hear much better than I could before. One thing I've found is that people have a sort of perception that hearing loss is only found in pensioners, you know, older people who are already struggling with everyday life, and that's really not the case at all, as I think some of your other films are showing. So for the general public, really what I'd like them to do is just communicate better with everybody. It doesn't have to be communicating with people who've got a hearing loss. If everybody took a little bit more time to be perhaps a bit more polite and speak a little bit more clearly, it's a bit more formal, I suppose. It's like going back in time a little bit, but if everybody spoke a bit more carefully, I think it would help a lot of people.
Thank you. Judy's been very honest about her experience and her hidden disability, which now with Ash means it's not so hidden. So she's explained that's easier for her going into a shop. For some of your other members, how difficult is shopping, travelling, getting around?
I think it's fair to say that a lot of people with a hearing impairment don't want to tell people. They don't really want to say, they see it as a weakness or a failing, and because it's associated with ageing to some extent. And there's also that old thing about, you know, if you can't hear me, are you deaf or are you stupid? You know, there's still that sort of feeling going on, and so not everybody is prepared to say. We've got some little badges that sort of say I'm a lip reader, and some people want to wear them, but many people don't. So yes, I mean, just doing the simplest things, people have to get used to. Like at the checkout in the supermarket, they actually always say the same thing. Have you got your bags today? What else do they say? What else do they say? Any cash back? And so, you know, the hearing impaired person does tend to get some strategies just because of the repetition of the situation, the same in banks and so on. One thing that happens is that there are lots of places that say they've got loop systems, but when you actually ask about it, you find that they haven't got them turned on. They've actually got no idea how they work. This has happened recently in a theatre over here. They've got about 3/4 of a system, but not the last bit that actually makes it work. So yeah, there are lots of things like that that are just frustrating, and hearing impaired people just don't bother. Like Judy said, it's easier really to get the video and watch a film at home with subtitles. We could do with more subtitle performances over here, having had just the one, which was fantastic. But everything should be subtitled.
Great, thank you. Just one last thing, if that's right. You mentioned the badge that said I'm a lip reader. Could you tell us, if you're new to anyone with a hearing impairment and you see the badge, what's the one or two things that you could do differently when you see that?
Yeah, if you see somebody with that badge, I think the most important thing is to come around so that the person can see you, so you're sort of facing. If that's not so easy, it is mostly appropriate to touch somebody on their arm just to get their attention just in a gentle way. Yes, just to get the conversation going, and yes, look straight at them, speak a bit more slowly.
ask if they need help. Actually, lots of shop assistants do ask if do you need any help? So it should come quite naturally to quite a lot of people in shops to do that, I think.
Thank you. As representing hard of hearing, any other tips for the public, having heard Judy today, Lorenzo earlier in the month, anything else that you'd like to say?
Just don't assume anything. You cannot tell by looking at somebody whether they've got a hearing loss or not. Just don't assume.
Some brilliant stuff in there. That rounds it off really well,
Okay.
doesn't it?
Yes, it was nice that you could say those sort of things. I often think, should you have a sign on your back saying I'm deaf, which isn't.
And the thing is, you don't want somebody to poke you,
No.
do you? But it just, it's people have to behave appropriately, don't they?
Yes.
I don't know. I wonder if there are people who've got very frustrated because you don't know if they've got frustrated.
No, I don't
with
know.
you.
No.
And shouting isn't any good.
No, I should have said that actually. Yes.
Shouting.
I think Leonie said that, didn't she? About
Yeah, she's not in this round.
No.
What doesn't help, Nikki?
Gosh. What really doesn't help somebody with a hearing loss is talking really slowly and loudly like that. Doesn't work at all. You just need to speak naturally, slow down a bit, maybe a little bit more volume, but not too much really. It doesn't help. That doesn't help at all. And if somebody's lip reading you, they may think that you're angry. If your facial gestures start to get very intense, they might think you're angry with them. So actually just relax, speak a little bit more slowly and raise your voice slightly, and that probably will help quite a bit.